side, and then all you'll see is my screen.
Yes. Yes, so would you guys do me a favor, and as people are kind of popping in, I know I've heard a few different things that happen at 2:30. If you would pop into the chat what like your burning question is or what your need to know is. I'm watching the poll just to kind of see. So far, it looks like most of us have already started hosting with students. So I won't necessarily need to go back to the beginning of how you even just start one. So if you haven't responded to the poll yet, if you'll respond to the poll, and then in the chat, just put whatever your burning question is.
All right, so where do I find the poll?
Good question. I haven't seen what this.
It should have been straight. It should have been right there whenever you first logged in, or it was for me at least. I mean, I couldn't get around it unless I closed it out.
Ah, or I wonder if you were in
it
before
just popped
I hit.
straight up on my screen when you sent it.
Okay.
Hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm gonna be your trouble student.
It's all good. Hi, Lynn. Welcome. How to record, do's and don'ts with students.
Hello.
Hi. Tips when we, okay, good. This is kind of what I was thinking folks would be interested in discussing, where when you have students in a Zoom, what are some of those tips, tools, settings that you can maintain a safe and positive environment with them? And then what are some just basic do's and don'ts? How can we help students understand expectations for participating in a Zoom and the different ways that we're using it? So I'm still watching my poll here, and it looks like got a good number who have hosted at least with teachers, some with students, some have found recording, a handful have found how to use the interactive features. And I am recording this, so if you have to jump out early, I will be putting the recording on the Kick site, which, let's see, I'll be posting in the chat link in just a moment, unless Erin wants to post that in the chat link for me. I'm afraid to X out of my screen I'm sharing right now to start.
I'm sorry, I stepped away. What do you want me to post?
Oh, can you post the link to the Kick site in the chat? Thank you. All right, it's 2 o'clock, so let's begin this. The slide deck that I am using that has step-by-step screenshots, just simple directions, is on the Kick site on the Zoom page. So I'm going to end with shooting that direct link out, but Erin has posted it. The recording for the Zoom will be posted on that page or linked on that page as well. It'll also be on the EdTech, the KSD EdTech YouTube channel as soon as we can. But let's go ahead and take a look and get started. So I see several questions, needs to knows about recording, just keeping it a safe and positive environment. Let me get this on. Okay, you guys see my slide deck now?
Yes.
Awesome, okay. So I know you've already gone through, and most of you, I see 7 out of 10 have hosted a Zoom, so you know how to start a Zoom. There's a couple of things that I found in Profile when you're in the online, the web-based Zoom, that you can adjust that might help you manage as you're starting to host more Zooms and participate in more Zooms. So you might want to go and visit this page. I'm not going to take us all into it right now, but when you go to kellerisd.zoom.us, sign in with your Google account and then click on Profile. There's a few things here that made my life a little bit easier. One of them was setting your avatar, whatever you would like for it to be. I have my Bitmoji just for levity, but you're welcome to put your professional headshot in there as well. But I would probably keep it, you know, on the professional side. It helped me when I found the date and the time setting. I was having trouble with when I went into the Zoom app and look at my scheduled Zooms, it was on Pacific time, but in my Google Calendar, it was on Central time. So this was helpful to go in and to set that for myself on Central time. That way it all syncs better. Speaking of syncing, there's a calendar integration, and you can integrate it with your contacts. So when you integrate it, then whether you're in the Zoom app or in Google Calendar, it's going to sync together. So I was getting to the point where I'd go into the Zoom app and I'd create a Zoom, but then it wasn't on my Google Calendar or vice versa. So that was helpful for me. So just a couple of tips in managing all of the meetings that you have coming. All right, so let's talk settings. So first, how can we keep it a safe and positive environment? When you are in the online Zoom, kellerisd.zoom.us, and you click on meetings, and then you go to schedule a new meeting, there are some settings that you might want to disable, particularly enable join before host. So something you want to get into practice in. We don't want to set up Zooms and put up links that aren't being monitored by a faculty member. We don't want students to go in and be hanging out without us, in other words. So if you disable the enable join before host, then that join, you might have noticed it in this one, the join button will be gray and won't turn blue until the meeting starts or until the host starts the meeting. I keep mute participants upon entry. I keep that selected, especially if you start to get a number of participants. Sometimes when they jump in, you might start to get feedback or just background noise that can kind of be distracting or lessen the overall quality of the video. You don't need to worry about enable waiting room if you deselect the enable join before host. So that's really the only one that I have selected when I go in to schedule a new meeting. So you've probably found, I see most of us have hosted a Zoom. There's a couple of different options. There's the Google Calendar option, and then you can share it right through those. Oops, sorry about that, got click happy. There's also the direct link and the copy invitation, but I see most of us have already created a Zoom. So I'm gonna come back to this if folks wanna see a little bit slower, kind of walk through this process. But I wanna get into some of the things that you guys were saying you'd like to see more about. So to start a meeting, you're gonna open the Zoom app. And if you're on your Windows device, you just click on the little Windows icon and then type in Zoom, and the app should pop up and it should open. You're gonna sign in with your Google account, and then you just click on the start button and you'll see your meetings pop up there. And then your start video. So let's talk a little bit about some of your video options here just on this screen. To see the different video settings, I don't know if you found this, I know our students are finding it, but if you click on the caret next to start video, then you're gonna be able to fix your camera. So I've seen some people starting to get really fancy about using a mobile device in the Zoom app as a document camera. So instead of it front facing like in selfie mode, if you're on a mobile device, you're using an iPad or a phone for like a document camera, you can switch that around. So then I've seen people make all kinds of things where they set like their mobile device down, and then they're able to use the camera on the rear side to be a document camera, which is cool. Some of us have found the virtual background, like currently I'm looking at the Golden Gate Bridge in the window. That's just a fun tool, a fun option. I've seen people do this as an icebreaker, getting a classroom into a Zoom for the first time and having them play with some of these fun features just to get them comfortably being in an online environment. So that's one that's fun to play with. The Manage Participants tab, there are some good settings here. So to find this one, when you're in a Zoom, you have your meeting controls, and then you have an option to manage participants. So if you click Manage Participants, then all those participants are going to show up in another dialog box. And then you have to kind of look for it. But at the bottom of that box, it's going to say mute all, unmute all, and more. And if you click on more, this is where you have some more opportunity to place a little bit more restrictions. You can choose not to allow students to unmute themselves. So if you want to be really controlled and determine when and how students contribute or ask questions, just using the audio, then you can deselect that. So right now for you guys, I have it so that you're muted upon entry, but you can unmute yourselves to ask questions. Well, with students, I might not allow them to unmute themselves. This is also where you can allow them to rename themselves. So when they come in, this is one area we've seen with students, a classroom norm or expectation might be to set that you have your screen name like on. It's your actual identity is on your screen name, and then you can deselect that they can rename themselves. So there's a couple of settings there that I found were helpful. So if you really want to establish tighter control in your Zoom, especially beginning as students get used to this, you can choose to not allow them to speak until you give them that permission. And when you're in Manage Participants, you can go right next to their names. And for example, if I went Diana to contribute, I'm clicking unmute. Hi, Diana.
Hi.
And there she is. And then you have some other options that you can get into. I can make Diana a co-host. I can allow her to start her own video. So there's more restrictions in Manage Participants than what you might have seen just initially as you were getting in and clicking and playing around. Any questions on managing participants in this setting? Anything new that you're seeing that you're like, oh, that could be useful? Is there a way to change the default for these settings? Jonathan, is your question about the default for the participant settings?
Yeah, so I was in a Zoom earlier today where no one could rename themselves and the host didn't know why. So can you set it to where it defaults to allowing people to rename themselves?
Yes, when you schedule the meeting, I think you can do some of these settings as well. Or the host can always go in the participants dialog box and they click on, let's see, can you guys see that now? I might fix my share. I can show you what there we go. All right, now can you see my participant dialog box?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. You can see more of these settings. So when I clicked on Manage Participants, I get this box open. I click on More. This is where I have that control to either allow them to rename, or allow them to unmute, or to lock that down. So as far as a default, I think when you create the meeting, you can set some of these things, or when the host first gets in, it might just get in the practice of coming in and setting the participant options as what they would like to see for that time. Did that answer your question, Jonathan?
Yes, and it turns out that I don't think we can see what you're talking about.
Oh, let me check my screen. It shows I'm sharing that view. I'm not sure why it's not. Well, the
You might have to
screenshot.
stop share and then share again,
Oh, thank you, Erin.
maybe.
Stop share. And now let me try sharing again. Okay. Let's try this again. I have dual monitors up, so moving things back and forth. Can you see my participant list now?
No, I can't.
I wonder if it's hidden because it's, I wonder if that's hidden. Like it's automatically, you can't see it when you're hosting just because it's kind of the back end of it. But
I'm imagining it.
You're imagining it. And you can see it. This is what it looks like in the screenshot on the slide deck that you can see with where those options to allow participants to rename themselves. What you can't see is where I clicked on that. So when you click on Manage Participants, the dialog box opens and you have three options on the bottom that say mute all, unmute all, and more. And you click on more. I'm gonna add a step here on this slide so that makes that clearer as well. All right, and let me come in and just check the chat real fast to see if anyone's popping in questions about this part. You're the person Jonathan's talking about. Oh, hi, Tammy Toe. Let's see. Yeah, I think only the host can see that too. I think so too. You're on the bad list. You can't unmute. I think as I was showing, let's see. Okay, I enabled you. You can all unmute yourselves now when you have a question.
Audrey, you know that's hard for me to not be able to talk.
Hi, Sarah. Sarah is also at the Golden Gate Bridge. I see.
Yes.
So I will update that slide to make that a little bit clearer about where you find those additional settings. So the chat settings, I was excited to see some of these when I stumbled upon these this morning. So when you're hosting and you open your chat dialog box, and I know you can't see this right now, but if you look at the screenshot, you can see what your options are. And this is one where you also have to look for that more button in the bottom right corner, or the 3 lines, depending on the size of your window. But when you have your chat box open as a host, you can click on more or the 3 dots, and then you can decide. So this is a teacher could be a good decision point. Do you need them in the chat to be able to respond to one another and to see everything publicly? If not, you might want to move the chat to host only. A host only chat would be that you can see everything, but they can only see your comments back to them. And everyone publicly. As a teacher, I don't think I would ever select, that I can think of a reason, to have everyone publicly and privately. Probably been in a Zoom by now where you're able to send a private message to someone in the chat. I know I've done that when I'm like in a Zoom, but I have my team is in like a Zoom with like a big team. We might kind of be messaging each other within that chat. That's something that I would say as a teacher, if you're Zooming with kids, that's something you probably don't want to do. If you have chat, you probably just want it to be public or host only. Any questions about chat? And that's what these are what the options look like on the screen in the slide right now. No one, host only, everyone publicly, and privately. And you're welcome. Oh, go ahead. I heard a voice.
Sorry, Audrey, it's Lynn. I don't think you're seeing what what's on the screen right now is your slide deck that has, but the settings aren't there. And I don't think we're seeing what you're seeing.
Okay, I meant for you to see my slide deck, but I can see maybe the screenshot that's on the slide deck isn't necessarily connecting. Since I can't show you the settings as I'm hosting this, this is a screenshot of the chat box when you're hosting. And then those setting options, what they look like when you click on more when you're in a chat box. So this is kind of how you do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for asking. I was like, how do I make these screenshots? Because I figured I couldn't show you how to host as I'm hosting you. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to update some of the screenshots.
Could you use your phone to do that?
Like join in the Zoom?
Yeah, like if you set your phone up like the document camera thing, but you're showing us your screen. We could
Probably. I'm
okay.
not going to stop. I don't think I'm going to stop to try that right now because I might get off on a tangent trying to get my phone to cooperate with me. But that's a good, that's an option. But know that those settings are there in chat, and I'm going to update this slide so that those directions are a little bit more specific and have some clearer screenshots so you can see what that looks like. All right, any questions, things that you've run into on chat with students? I see that you have the chat set only to everyone. I think that's helpful to be sure students aren't having private conversations. Exactly. So Tammy, did you see how we do that? Right here, when you're hosting and you click on chat, the bottom of your chat box, there's a more button. And when you click more, it gives you these options to select from.
I got it. Thank you, Audrey.
Awesome, yay. It's so weird to show you like back end, but you can't actually see the back end. All right. So share settings. This is one of those things I found just this morning. So here's a screenshot of when you're hosting. When you click on share, if you notice, I'm gonna pop this open. Right here, there's that little caret. And there's been several times someone says to me, oh, you just click on the caret to do that. And so that's the caret, if you're wondering. So to find this option to change your share settings, you click on the caret next to the share button, and then here's your two options. Here's your options. Who can share? So if you don't want your students to be able to click share and pop their screen up there for everybody to see, on that screen, then you want to make sure you select that radial that says only host right there. And then you also have the option who can start sharing when someone else is sharing. So that way, if this is all participants, then maybe you have a student who is sharing their screen, but then another student kind of like pop-ins and pops their screen up there. So you want to keep this at only host. So between the chat settings to ensure that it's public, not private, or it's only to the host, and then the screen sharing option to keep it on only host, I think those two things can really help ensure a lot of safety and security for our kids when they're online, and keeping them focused on the learning and the relevant conversation that is happening, instead of things that they might be posting privately in the chat or things that they're trying to push onto everyone's screen. Any questions about the share setting? Now, can you change that setting for a student that needs to share? Yes, in the participants dialog box, I can come over here and click next to more and allow, let's see, I haven't played this one yet. Oh, I'm so sorry about the dog. I think the man's here. I clicked on Spotlight Video. I was trying to push like Jonathan. Jonathan, did you get something on your screen that you can share?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not seeing anyone else now. I'm just seeing me. Oh,
Hi.
oh, hello.
Can you share your
Hello,
screen?
handsome. Can I share my screen?
Uh-huh.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to play with that one. Does anyone know how, if you have it disabled so that your participants can't share, how you can give that just to one person? I don't see it when I'm just looking at those options. That's something I'm gonna make a note of. You can pick this. The video spotlight pushes that person, like obviously like you saw, to the front, but I don't see where I can just, when I'm in here, I'm gonna add some things. I'm noticing that I can also stop that video. So Jonathan's misbehaving right now. Sorry, Jonathan, but you're out. You don't get this anymore. And then I can ask him to restart his video when he starts to behave. I think I'm gonna add some slides in here for a couple more things. When I'm in Manage Participants and I hover over someone's name, then there's 3 dots, and then I have more options here. I can make someone a co-host. Let's see. Sarah, get ready. I'm making Sarah a
I'm ready.
co-host, and now Sarah probably can share her screen.
Oh, yay.
Can you share your screen, Sarah?
Sure. Wait, let me put it on something that won't scare y'all. Too many tabs open. Okay. Share,
Oh, I know.
Share. All right. Can y'all see our Kick website?
Yeah.
Let me minimize that. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
So that might be the alternative. And now I can withdraw co-host permissions, and now Sarah can't share her screen anymore. So as far as how can I lock down
Right.
screen sharing for all students, but allow certain students, you can make them a co-host, and then when they're done, you can withdraw co-host. So I'm gonna add those slides here as well.
And that did work. I tested it.
Yay!
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna push this back out. So any questions or thoughts about screen sharing? How are we feeling? Are we feeling a little safer so far? Feel a little bit more sense of security as far as what you can do to ensure that students are safe, having positive behaviors? Yes, yay. One more question. How do I record only me if I want to do a video similar to this? All right, I want to make a help video. If you just want to make a video of yourself, you just don't invite anybody, I'm thinking. So if you were making it and you didn't have kids invited in at the same time, you just wanted to make like a tutorial or a help video, then correct if I'm wrong, Sarah and EdTech crew, but couldn't you just start a Zoom, not invite
That,
anyone?
in theory, that sounds right. I've never done it, but what a great idea. You know?
Now I need to go back and maybe our team can talk about, in light of the parameters that Dr. Westfall gave us today, as far as recording when you do have students in, we can put together something for that to think about how you could do that.
That's what I was actually trying to figure out was
Okay.
like, if I'm with my group and I want to be able to show the people who didn't show up in my class today
Mm-hmm.
what we talked about, how do I do that and just show me without everybody else? That's what I'm asking.
And you went off the top of your head.
So as long as nobody else is showing video, they're not going to see anybody else.
In the recording, you only see what the screen is being shared
see
by
that,
the host,
yeah.
right?
Or the active speaker.
That's what I was thinking too. But if you're not sharing your screen and it's the Zoom screen is just popping into whoever is the active speaker at that time, you're still going to see students' names and faces. So as long as you keep the host screen shared, does that sound right?
Yes, and I was thinking you could even have them rename. I know you were talking about renaming themselves as a character fake name, I guess, if you're really super concerned about it. But yes, if you had your screen shared full screen, I think we're going to have to play with that to feel 100% confident, but
We will work on
that's what we're
putting something
thinking.
out. Those
Yeah.
parameters are new for us too. So we will work
Yeah.
on adding something to our Kick site on how you can do that and ensure that you're within what you need to do to support students, but then also keeping them safe online. All right. So this is a PDF from Zoom. I'm going to show you some resources here. I felt that these were pretty helpful. This is just a one-page PDF that they put out. When you're in the slide deck, you can click and it's going to take you to a Wakelet of additional resources, but I'm not going to click that open quite yet. These are some of those things that we've already talked about, like presetting your meeting to mute. Looking at so right now I'm doing the non-example because I'm looking at my dual screen, but things like creating eye contact with the camera, looking directly into the camera so that students get that personal connection. Thought that was a great tip because sometimes I will do this when I'm talking because I'm thinking, don't really think about the faces that are right there on the screen in the Zooms. Sharing those images and video, but then also pausing to give them a moment to take in, especially if they're all muted. You don't have that sense of pacing like you do in a classroom because you can kind of hear them and you see their faces responding. So planning, that's a difference, I think, when you're planning online instruction. Really think about when are you going to chunk? Is it every 3 minutes for elementary kids? Is it every I wouldn't go more than 5 minutes even with secondary kids, just to stop to do a status check in the chat and then to ask questions, to answer questions before you go on. The poll is a great way to do that. You can start a poll and just do a quick status check. Let's see. So here's a place I wanted to kind of get an idea for you because this is very new. I wanted to hear some of your thoughts as far as what could classroom norms sound like Zoom classroom norms. What kind of thoughts or ideas? And if you want to unmute and just shout things out, I'm going to record it in the slide. What are some things, if you've done this with your kids, when you've been Zooming with them, what ideas did they have? How can you engage them in creating norms? I'll show you the poll in just a moment, Lynn.
Those are not optional.
What is clothes are not optional?
Oh no. Audrey, one thing I've
Or appropriate clothes are school appropriate clothes, yes.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed with these meetings, which I've been I haven't done perfectly, but if you're not talking, to remember to mute, because just, shuffling papers or it might be distracting for someone. So I try to say what I need to, and then it's been a learning curve for me, but to remember to mute when you're not speaking.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else that, go ahead.
Our principal mentioned having a professional background, so not unmade beds or things like that.
That's a good point. Just those things can be distracting for students, especially probably trying to see, like, I don't know, you trying to check out all the book titles on my shelf back there, but something that's distracting, or Days of Our Lives playing in the background, things like that. Any other norms y'all can think of? Chat box. If you knew all kids can unmute themselves if they want to say something. Yes, Lisa, if you enable that in the chat settings, you can either have it so they can't unmute themselves, you have to unmute them upon request, or they can unmute. Chat room is for questions, communications, respectful. I think establishing like what the different tools are for, and that might change for each Zoom interaction that you have, but just laying out in the beginning, chat is for whatever it might be. If it's questions, if it's examples, if it's extensions, directions, and that
It
could
might be-
change.
It might be nice for the teachers to have that chat room norms just posted as the kids come on.
Yeah.
Especially for these younger kids who just want to get on and they just start talking, and it's hard for the teacher to start. Just remember, have that posted as your screensaver when you come on to a Zoom for these kiddos.
Yeah. As soon as you come on, post those. And initial directions on what you want them to do. If you want them to reply in the chat box and how they're doing today, or something fun that they did. And just like when we come into class, what are those norms that we do? How do we establish norms at the start of every class? How do students know what to do as soon as they enter in the classroom? They need to know what to do upon entering the Zoom classroom.
I think that just like we set up in our classrooms that we have to be respectful of each other's speaking, I think teaching them how to raise a hand, which is not always the appropriate way in class. Like we can have conversations. It doesn't work well online.
Right.
And so if we have them muted and they know how they can raise their hand in Zoom, we can call on them and still have a conversation, but one at a time.
Yes. Yes. Use the raise your hand feature, which we need to add to the Google slide, so they can still be called on one at a time, just as in class. Anything else that's come up as you're doing initial Zooms with students is something that you need to establish a norm for or revisit for them that maybe you didn't expect?
With the raise your hand feature, does that create a queue? How do you determine the order?
I don't know. Do you guys see how to raise your hand in here? I'm looking at my participants. Oh, it's not creating a queue. It's not time stamping it. When I look over at my participant list, I just see the blue hand go up. And I can lower the hand. So I just answered Lynn's question. So I lowered her hand and put her hand down. I'm going to take a screenshot of this while we're talking, not airplane mode. Hello, wrong thing. There we go. And then I got a thumbs up from Erin. Good job. We'll add directions on how to do that, on what the screenshot looks like as far as when you're hosting, like what the raise your hand looks like, and then for students, how they do that. But it didn't timestamp it, Jonathan, to answer your question. That just popped up in real time, and then I have the option to lower their hand. So
Audrey.
That's how I could keep up with it. Yes.
Okay, this is Sarah. Can you hear? Someone was sharing how they were using it. I don't know if you could hear them.
How they were using the raise your hand?
Yeah, I don't know who it was.
Oh, go again.
It was Johansson.
Hi.
I was just gonna say that one of my favorite things is that when you have the raise your hand, there's an option to lower all hands. So if you ask a question, you have a lot of kids raise their hand, you pick one, they answer, you can lower all their hands at once and then move on.
That's a good tip. Then you know what is a new question or a new answer to another question instead of going, okay, Amanda, oh, you were just answering that last question. Oh, okay, and going on. That's a good tip. We'll add that. All right. As a participant, is there a way I can know who's talking without scrolling through all of the pictures, but when someone else comments? Yes, you can. And I'm trying to figure out how I can tell you if I can't necessarily show you that at this time. You can set it. It is a setting. I'm trying to full screen, but I don't think mine will look like that.
I think I just stumbled upon it. I clicked participants at the bottom.
Mhm.
So that may already be on for you guys. It pulls up a little window above my chat.
Mhm.
Are y'all seeing that? And so I can kind of see like there's a red dot blinking by Audrey. So she's probably turned on and everybody else is muted. And then of course I can see myself. I don't know if that's the best way. And I'm also seeing the raise your hand y'all were talking about under that.
I can see, Sarah, as I see the participants, I see your microphone going up and down.
Yeah.
So that I can see that you're the one that's speaking. I think the red dot by Audrey is that she's recording.
Yes.
That means
Oh,
she's
okay. Yes. Okay. So look more at the microphone. Perfect.
And she's screen sharing. The green is she's screen sharing.
She's screen sharing. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's little icons for everything.
There are. How many co-hosts can there be in a meeting? I don't know if I've run into that. I haven't pushed it. I've done like 1 or 2. Does anybody know off the top of your head how many co-hosts you can have? We can add that as just kind of an FAQ that we'll collect for folks. Okay. I don't know if anyone knows yet. We're going to add that as an FAQ.
I did a quick search and I didn't find a specific number. It's something you add, obviously, once you get into the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But before the meeting, you can also add alternative hosts because like a co-host can't start. Like if you have it set to people can't join until the host join. The co-host is done obviously after the meeting starts, so you can't do that until then. But you could set an alternative host so that they could start the meeting at the same time, or kind of like you do. So like if you co-teach those kind of things, you could have your co-teacher set up as that alternative host. But I haven't seen a specific number for how many people can co-host.
Audrey, I wasn't sure if you saw mine. I was above some of those other ones, but can you save this recorded thing to my Google Classroom?
Yes, that's what we're going to look at next.
Okay.
These are great suggestions for norms. I'm going to show you where there's a collection of some other things that teachers have done. Make it back in here. So you can record when you have your meeting controls open. You can hit to start your recording. And then when you're recording, there's what that button looks like. You want to select the option to record on this computer instead of to the cloud. The cloud is not like, when I first saw that, I thought I'd have the option to record it to like my Google Drive and it's going to automatically save there. That's to our Keller Zoom cloud. So you want to record it to the computer to create that video file. And then you're going to hit the start record. You can pause your recording at any time. So if you need to, if something happens and kind of gets derailed, you can hit pause, you can take care of it, solve it, and then hit resume and it's going to start, or that's where you stop it. When you hit stop recording, then it's going to remind you that it won't finish the recording until you end the meeting. So even if I stop recording right now, it's not going to process and render that video until I end the Zoom meeting as a whole. So once you end it, then the dialog box will pop open and you'll see a little screenshot down here. It'll give you 3 options for files and you're going to select the MP4 file and it's going to be called Zoom _0, or it might change as you get more recordings. So you want the MP4 file, and then from there you can put it wherever it makes sense to you. You can upload that into Drive and then share it through Google Classroom and Drive. You can add it as an attachment in Canvas. If you have like a private YouTube channel for your students, you can upload it to YouTube and then, you know, share it as playlists within YouTube. So from there, the possibilities are numerous on how you could share that. And I'm not sure right now if we have a direction as to like the best way to do that, if there's any more guidance on that. But so far, I have shared it through just a Google Drive folder. And depending on the length of the video, it can take, I had one last night. It was an hour-long video, and it took about an hour to upload. That's just life right now. So it's not instantaneous. It does take a little bit of time to process and to render the video, and then to attach it or upload it to something else to share. Any other questions about recording that? And we're going to get some more guidance. We're going to play with how you can record your Zoom settings when you're working with students, but in a way that protects their privacy as well. Okay. Oh.
A quick question, Audrey.
Yeah.
If we were to set this up like how Dr. Westphal did, like through YouTube Live, would we, at the end of that, would there automatically be a YouTube video? Does that circumvent the save it to your hard drive and then upload?
Aaron, yes. Okay, let's let Aaron.
Yeah, so that's how we do our Kickstart Your Learnings as well. So we send it to YouTube Live, and then so it's already out there on our YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera.
I guess the warning for that might be, since it is live and then it goes out, it broadcasts out there immediately, do you want to take caution to establish whatever settings you want to see in place to protect privacy and to maintain that safe environment?
Correct.
And I'm not sure what you could do after, as far as adjusting the video or editing, you know, once it's out there, it'd be out there unless you took it down.
So if we're still out and we end up getting back into our regular lessons with like mini lessons and then workshop time, we could, during our class meeting, put it on mute everybody and don't share the file, give our little 10 or 15 minute mini lesson, which may actually be possible since the kids can't. And then quit the recording or pause the recording, then open it up kind of like for questions and answers and stuff. And then we could post like onto the classroom, just the recorded part for anybody who missed it. Does that sound right?
Yes. And yeah, and that process sounds about right.
Okay.
How that could work together.
Okay.
All right. So we had a question about the polls, some of the interactive tools. So you experienced the poll. Has anyone else played with polls with your students or how you've used it? Not yet. So when you came in, you experienced poll, and I'll create screenshots for this. And I know you can't see my meeting controls right now, but the poll option is in your meeting control. We'll add some more resources on the Kick site, just how to very quickly do this. So when you create a poll, then you can, you type a question and then you give options. So I'm opening my poll and I'm clicking share results. So now somewhere on your screen, you should see the results of the poll that you responded to. Do y'all see that? So there's the results. I can hit relaunch poll and it would clear, and then it would like ask the same question. So I see good opportunity for like formative checks or just status checks there with the polls. Another option is the, let's see, I'll find it. You have your annotate tool, which I turned on a little earlier. So this is where if you had something on your screen that you were sharing, and this is just a Google slide right now, but you can add options to annotate. I love the little stars. This is the stamp option. So if, you know, if students shared something or you had student workup responses, or students can also do this, that kind of goes into the next level of how you can use all of this with students. You can turn it on. Let's see. All right, now I'm allowing you. So now you should be able to click on annotate. And I could tell students, okay, folks, so we have these ideas on the screen. We've gone over this step and process. Pick your question mark stamp and put a question next to the things that you're still wondering about. Or pick the check mark on the thing that, you know, makes the most sense. It's really clear. So you guys as participants should be able to do that now since I enabled it. You see where it has annotate?
I'm not seeing that.
You're not seeing that? Someone is.
I am. I'm
Lisa
trying.
found it. Lisa, where did you see your annotate button as a participant?
Can you hear me? Actually, I forgot to remute myself. Sorry. Okay, so it was up at the very top, like where it says I'm viewing Audrey Wilson's screen, and I think I clicked on view options is where it came out. And
okay.
Was that right? Because I can't remember exactly how I did it, but I think that's
so. Yeah.
Yes.
View options. Yeah. Oh, now the fun is starting. Now I turned on, so you see those names in my controls, and we'll create screenshots of this too, but I turned on that I can see the names of the annotators. Ooh. So if Lynn decides to get a little silly with her text or whatever it might be, I can see that she's doing that in that time. And I can also hide the names, and then I can turn it off and disable it. And then I can quickly clear everyone's drawings except for mine, or clear my drawing. So there's some opportunity there for engagement through Zoom. There are some more, but we can do a couple of follow-up things on that, on how you can do more of these things to engage students. I want to point everyone to, before we end, get off my annotation. My meeting controls keep getting in my way. On the Kick site, which Erin put in the chat box a little while ago, let me see, it is in KCloud, or you can also go to the direct URL, kellerisd.net/kick. See if that works for you guys. I'm opening it on my screen so you can see with me. I already have it. I'm still on annotate. I don't want to annotate anymore. All right. So we have a Zoom page on our Kick site. That's where this slide deck is, and we're going to update the slide deck with a couple more screenshots for those back-end settings like in chat and screen share, so you can see exactly how to find those different things that you can ensure that your Zoom session for students is safe and positive. There are some quick start guides, whether you're starting in Mac or Windows, how you can just access Zoom. So those could be shared directly with students on how they just get in, if you like. We also have a page on a Zoom and Canvas integration. So if you're using Canvas, you can Zoom through Canvas, which for a middle school or high school teacher could be a really nice option, because then you're going to know what their screen names are. You're going to know that only those kids have access to it. I have not gone in and played with this yet in Canvas. I just saw this morning, but the step-by-step directions are here provided by the EdTech team. And you can reach out to us if you have more questions on that, on how to do that in Canvas. We haven't seen a way to integrate Zoom directly into Classroom, but that is one topic that we've heard from that we know we're going to research and just see if there is a way to pull that directly into Classroom as well. Let's see, any other like lingering questions or things we didn't cover on how to do in Zoom?
I just have a question about, we said about not recording, but like we used to do news team and have those recorded and shared out public facing, do we need an extra permission from parents that, hey, we're still doing those news teams? Or how should we go about on that procedure and use this like Dr. Westphal did, and use this straight into a YouTube live?
Did they already give permission, those parents, for the news team students at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, about the beginning of the year. Should that be sufficient then?
Well, the outcome is still the same, right? Because you were still
Right.
using Facebook Live or YouTube Live.
We were using, yeah, we posted them to YouTube when we were finished.
I would think then it would be the same. It's just a different tool instead of being in school. As long as it's moderated, maybe a follow-up email to those parents just on the process on what it will look like for those students and to reach out with questions or concerns.
Sounds good.
That way they know, like, there might be a Zoom that you host with those students and they'll be producing the videos. This is what parents could expect to see. These are the assurances that we're taking, that we're implementing to make sure students are safe and it's an a positive online experience for them.
Perfect.
We've seen so many great examples of teachers using Zoom for morning meetings right away, like day 2, day 3. We've seen, I saw one screenshot of a classroom and they were all doing book talks. They held up their books that they were reading and they were sharing that. What other really positive things have you been doing with Zoom with students to get them connecting with one another again, even though they're apart? Have you done anything else, or have you seen anything that you want to share as we wrap up?
So I haven't done anything other than just a class meeting. But I do want to ask you, is this, if I'm sending out the invites the right way, like, okay, for teachers, I can, like, once I establish the meeting, I can go onto my Google Calendar or whatever our calendar is, and I can invite them and send them that evite that they can click. But for students, I didn't know how to do that. So I've been on the Zoom link, copying the invitation, then going into TAC and sending out an email to all my classes and pasting that invitation. Is that the best way to do that, or is there a better way to invite students?
Are you using Classroom or Canvas with your students?
I'm using Google Classroom.
I would say at this point, and until your students know how to expect the communication from you, I think you'll know which is the best way to ask them to reach them. If there was a system that you had prior to this, I would say stick with that system because that's what they expect from you. If they knew to check Classroom for communications in like Stream or classwork, or you're using the calendar in Classroom or in modules in Canvas, stick with that. If you need an additional layer of that, just to ensure that somehow that communication is getting home, even if they're not looking at their Classroom notifications, and an email through TAC, I think is a great way to kind of to blanket it so parents see that you're also providing communication. I think once we get further in, or maybe by now, depending on when you started that, you could keep it within. That will also help with some of the information overload that's out there for parents and students right now. As much as possible, we want to try to maintain the online routines that we've already established and use those to build upon what we need to also provide during this time. I love just the class meetings, the check-ins, the how are yous, let me see your face, virtual hugs. That's all so important. Any other celebrations or ways that you've seen Zoom used or you've used with your students so far? I saw most of you had in our poll. All right. Any last questions before we wrap up? All right. So Sarah is reminding us we have a Kickstart tomorrow at 4:30. And the link is there, and that will be more teachers sharing how they're using different tools and finding new opportunities to connect with their students with online learning. So it's just going to be a big share session, hearing from several different teachers. So I'm super excited about that and look forward to being energized and motivated by them and their stories. Reach out to EdTech if you have any questions. Don't forget to visit Kickstart, and we'll work on updating our Zoom page there so that you have resources for the different questions and needs that you brought us today. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you for your patience as we try to show you some things that are difficult to show on the back end, and we'll work on filling in some of those gaps. Oh, private percussion lessons. I heard about that, Rachel. I saw that on Facebook too. That's fun for your house probably to have the percussion going on. Absolutely, and glad everyone could join us. All right.